Okay. Hello, everybody. I just want to introduce my group. We are 100% Athens. We're a grassroots campaign to transition Athens to 100% clean and renewable energy by 2035. I'm going to sort of outline our presentation for you. I'm going to talk about why it's necessary that we invest in renewable energy right now. Michael's going to tell you, this is Michael Songster. I'm sorry, I'm Carrie Ritzler, Michael Songster. Michael's going to tell you a little bit how our funding structure works that we're proposing. And then throughout the presentation, we'll both be talking about how Athens-Clarke County residents will benefit from this kind of proposal. So I'm starting with the scary part. If you have a friend to hold a hand with, go ahead. This is a report that you have an article in your handout about how southern counties are going to suffer disproportionately in the coming decades under climate change, and that's mostly because it's already hot here, and more heat is going to have an economic impact on us. You can see Athens-Clarke County is kind of down here. We're not red, but we're dark orange. We're going to see more droughts, more floods, more extreme weather, and more heat waves. And so with that coming, it's really important that we do everything we can to reduce our emissions and start to live more sustainably together. The 34.4% of Athenians who are living in poverty are going to be made more vulnerable by the changes from climate change. And so we just have to do our part to ensure stability and the continuation of civility for the future generations. Since climate change is an equity problem, we've really focused on equity as our solution. Our 100% renewable energy SPLOST is equitable. We're talking about, you could use it for upgrades to reduce the energy burden for residents of affordable housing. It could be used to buy electric buses, which would reduce emissions, making our whole town healthier, and also could save money by fuel costs and get us closer to fare-free ridership. It's important that we transition away from fossil fuels in a way that's just and equitable, and where we're really considering the needs of our most vulnerable residents. And it's really part of a larger historic movement in town. We're very excited to have a lot of support from the mayor and commission. On February 4th, Kelly Gertz signed the Sierra Club commitment for clean energy, for 100% clean energy, and several of the other commissioners have committed as well, and we believe we'll be seeing a resolution coming in the coming months. And it's extremely important that we demonstrate our commitment to that resolution by putting some funding behind it so that we can get started right away. And there's really no downside to using SPLOST funds for that, because as Andrew was pointing out in his presentations, when you invest in clean energy, you get the money back and then some. So Michael's going to tell you more about how that part of it works.
Hi. So as Carrie said, this is really part of a bigger vision for a 100% renewable energy transition in Athens. And she mentioned the 100% renewable energy resolution and the following plan that will come from that. And that was really, our anticipation of that plan was really part of the motivation for the submittal of the SPLOST project. And this SPLOST project will be integral to being able to make a meaningful start to that plan as we move forward. So we consider this to be an infrastructure project. It is advancing our energy infrastructure, and SPLOST is really the only tool that we have to make significant infrastructure investments. And this is an investment. It will pay real returns to Athens-Clarke County in the form of avoided fuel and energy costs. So let's talk about how the money would be spent. Similar to Andrew's, we anticipate that at least in part we would use this in conjunction with other SPLOST projects, so that we could dramatically increase their energy efficiency. We see it being used across 4 broad categories. Number 1, energy efficiency and renewable energy installations at affordable housing developments. Number 2, to pay for the incremental increase in design and construction costs to make new Athens-Clarke County facilities net zero. Number 3, to fund incremental increase in cost for low-emission vehicles, to electrify the Athens-Clarke County fleet, and 4, energy efficiency and renewable energy installations at existing Athens-Clarke County facilities to move them to net zero over time. So let's talk about the impact on Athens-Clarke County's government energy use. And we'll start with where we are currently and what we've done so far. So the graph on the left shows the total energy use of the Athens-Clarke County government and all sustainability efforts to date and what effect they have had on that energy use. And it's about 10% of energy use. We expect that this project, fully funded, would add an additional 15% offset to that energy use, bringing us to slightly more than a quarter, which is a good start. It leaves a fair bit of the pie left to tackle there. Okay, so as I said, this is an investment, and it will pay returns in avoided fuel and energy costs. And to get an idea of what that looks like, besides the examples that Andrew gave, consider the hybrid electric buses that Athens Transit purchased that immediately paid a return of $250,000 a year in avoided fuel and maintenance costs. So we can talk about the savings. An $18.3 million investment in renewable energy and energy efficiency will result in, and this is according to the Office of Sustainability, $1.3 million in savings per year from avoided fuel and energy costs. Break that down, that's a 7.2% rate of return. It'll primarily go to the general fund, where those savings can be used for any governmental activity. They will not be subject to SPLOST limitations. It represents a payback period of 14 years. And I think this is an important point, and it's one that Andrew made, that as we face difficult choices about appropriating limited funds for a seemingly unlimited number of needs, this project gives us the opportunity to spend the money twice. We can invest in this, that money will come back, and then we can use it for something else that the government needs to do. So I'm going to step back and take a look at the bigger picture, because beyond the local benefits that this project will produce, really it's about a global problem, as Carrie mentioned. It's about climate change. And in the absence of any real leadership at the state and federal level, it's become incumbent on cities to lead on this issue. And in doing this, we would not be alone. There are over 100 cities nationwide that have committed to a 100% renewable energy pledge, including Atlanta and Augusta and Clarkston and Georgia. And together we can make a difference, by showing Georgia Power and the state legislature that Athens has made a commitment to 100% renewable energy transition. We can encourage them to take those policies to the state level and expand them.
And just sort of following up on what he's talking about with the other cities, 100% is all of us. It's all of you. It's me. It's everyone in the county is part of 100%. And so we've been doing everything we can as citizens to build the kind of partnerships that we'll need to make this a very inclusive, broad effort. Both local. We've been talking to the local nonprofits. Also, some of the statewide nonprofits that are working in these other cities. We've also been working in the city by meeting with Andrew. Thank you, Andrew, for meeting with us. We've met with Rick Parker from the Athens Housing Authority, and we've met with Deborah Lennon from the Housing and Community Development Department, and we're committed as citizens to continue building those partnerships and working in the community so that we can be part of making sure that the money that's given to this project and anything else that we get is going to be used in the best way for the community. And we are talking about our community. We're talking about building a resilient, prosperous, and sustainable future for Athens. That's for our kids, for my kids, for your kids, for the new people who will be moving in. And it is about the kids. The kids of the world right now are begging us, the adults of 2019, to act. This is Greta Thunberg. She's a 16-year-old from Sweden. She's leading an international climate strike called Fridays for the Future. And she has a great quote. She says, "We need hope. Of course we do. But the one thing we need more than hope is action." So this SPLOST proposal that we're giving you is your chance to act on behalf of the future. And we hope you will. Questions?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm on board with all of this conceptually. So if we fund this project, who administers the programs? I mean, I guess I'm kind of very confused about that. Maybe I just didn't listen. I don't know. But if you can elaborate on that, and
Yes.
then I think I have follow-up questions.
Yeah, so I think we anticipate that it would primarily go through the Office of Sustainability, and I guess Andrew could speak to that to some degree.
So we would serve as a technical advisor on all things energy. Actual implementation is done through the SPLOST office, and oversight is done by the Mayor Commission.
So my follow-up question, and there's no disrespect, but why would we not just give Andrew an additional $18 million to?
Sure, and I think that, and you know, we and Andrew anticipated the question as to what the difference was here. Like, what are we talking about that's different? And so I think he is passing out the infographic that may help. But
hopefully this will be the last time I've talked during the
but I think it has a lot to do with what the vision of the program is, and so we are talking about funding the beginning of a transition whose goal is to make the Athens-Clarke County government, to begin with, 100% renewable. Andrew's projects up to date and continuing with what he demonstrated are more about a meeting demand of facilities in order to kind of shave off the peak of their energy use. So as an example, he mentioned the Firehouse number 2 and the Cooperative Extension Center. There are renewable energy dollars that are going into that. It's going to offset about 20% of that facility's energy use. So we're talking about something that kind of goes beyond that.
Michael, how are we going to come up with the electricity? Are we going to build solar farms that are going to power all the vehicles to recharge? Otherwise, we're paying more in electrical costs, and I didn't see that offset in your proposal. Right.
So that's actually, in terms of funding the electrical cost of the vehicles, we can. It's much less expensive to power vehicles on electricity than it is on fuel. So the offset there is not, but really
it's cleaner, and I understand that,
yeah.
But it's also sometimes coming from nuclear. So
well, as the 100% movement, we recognize that this is not going to, this $17 million, if fully funded, is not going to get us to 100% renewable energy, and we're really not asking the SPLOST, for SPLOST to do that alone. But when you're talking about the electric vehicles, it's going to be a process of getting, making sure that the technology is right for this situation, and picking the low-hanging fruit first, and the savings that would be initially represented just by switching to electric vehicles powered by our current electric system would be huge for the county. And then, as the technology rises up and as renewables become more and more available, then we can transition to, maybe we could transition to charging them with solar, if we can procure a solar farm, so there's a lot of different options for how to do that, and we don't have all of that worked out right now, but we need to start. We can't wait to have the whole thing mapped out before we get started.
I totally agree. I just have questions.
Of course,
if
yeah.
this gets on there, we got to explain it to the public.
Yeah, please keep asking questions.
Yeah. Just for clarification, who's responsible for the electrical cost of affordable housing? Is it the resident or the city?
Okay, so yeah, that would be, in our conversations with the Athens Housing Authority, that would come through some sort of intergovernmental agreement where it's beneficial to both parties. And then on the one that you know, you have a SPLOST proposal in front of you for an affordable housing development, and I'm not sure any of us are sure exactly what the details of that are, but if SPLOST dollars are available to be used there, then SPLOST dollars are available to be used to offset energy consumption there. So that would be administered like any of the other ones.
So would it be for the new build out of affordable housing? Is that what we're talking about, or is this on existing?
So I think we're talking about two different things. If it's with the housing authority, it would be on existing facilities. And in our meeting for them, the one that stuck out in their mind, in our mind, was Denny Tower. That was the one that made the most sense to them. This is based on one conversation. Obviously, there would be an agreement that is made between Athens-Clarke County. We would not be involved in that agreement since we have no authority to do that. So that would be worked out between them.
So it would be to alleviate the burden on those in affordable housing.
Right.
Okay.
Which you know, alleviating the burden, the energy burden on the you know, poor in our community is going to help our community economically, you know.
Sure. Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
You've kind of made a very holistic, all-encompassing proposal at the 30,000-foot level, but there's not many details. How in the world did you come up with an $18.3 million figure without getting granular? I mean, did you count the number of public buildings and the number of low-cost residences, or I mean, did you take into account how many vehicles the county has, or how do you come up with this figure, because there really are no specifics in here?
Right, and so I'll talk about the no specifics, but the figure really came from, when we look at the pie graph, it was about percentage of energy use and how much we're going to be able to offset and getting a beginning to this. So that's really where that number came from, making a meaningful start to the whole transition. In terms of not getting granular, it's related to Andrew's discussion about being able to apply funds when they make the most sense to be applied. And so if we're going to be able to do this, we need to be able to do it when it makes the most sense to do it. There are lots of SPLOST projects that could be, you know, this money could be applied to. You know, someone mentioned the new judicial center. Well, if we're going to make that net zero, this is money that can be used for that, but that may not be, in fact, something that becomes part of the SPLOST. And so we're not going to say that it's going to go to a judicial center that's not, in fact, going to be built. So that's part of why there's flexibility built into the way the proposal was put together.
Of course, over the 10-year span, you've got these huge shifts in technology that you can't even know where they're going.
Exactly. You know, we're not trying to predict. We just want to make the funds available so we can get started, because it's absolutely necessary that we get started.
The proposal has $10 million for construction, $3.7 million for capital equipment. Of the $13.7 million, can you give us a rough breakdown of how much you're expecting to go to the three main priorities you have, the net zero buildings?
I think that's not our
proposal. That was our alternate proposal, and I put that together. Right.
I don't know. That doesn't sound like our proposal, because we don't have any construction costs in our proposal,
Yeah.
I believe.
They probably had it all in equipment, and we shifted it to construction because it is truly construction.
Gotcha. Okay, so $13.7 million in between those two. How can you give us kind of a rough breakdown of how much will go to each of the priorities you mentioned?
Yeah, so I think that depends on the decision makers as to what things that they do. If it were me, you know, building new net zero buildings would be important because those buildings go out 50 years, and so we can, you know, zero out their energy use from the beginning. But I don't know that that's how people will choose to spend that money. Yeah.
Kind of related to Laura's point or question, like when you're looking at options for, I guess, biggest return or biggest bang, did you consider doing like a municipal solar farm? And if you did, how did you choose this over that, or why would you choose this over that?
Well, the transition to 100% is going to, you know, require solar farms. It's going to require rooftop solar. It's going to require, you know, geothermal. It's going to require really everything we can throw at it. So we were, you know, just trying to look at what's the thing that we can that we can affect most directly right now with SPLOST. You know, and I don't think we're limited if we wanted to use the funds to, you know, to install a solar farm somewhere. You know, we've left it broad enough, but we did want to tie this specifically to, you know, projects. The idea is, you know, if the city is already building something or already purchasing, like if the city's already purchasing a bus, we don't want to pay for the whole new electric bus. We want our SPLOST fund to be available so that they can grab that extra that would be needed to make it an electric bus. If you're renovating a building, we don't want to pay for the whole renovation. We want our fund to be available to pay for that extra that it costs to get it the most energy efficient that it can possibly be, as close to net zero as it can be. So that's sort of how we were thinking about it. Does that answer your question? Okay.
That's what you mean by gap funding, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think if I can follow, I think one big part of this picture that is slightly in the future is the idea of the resolution energy plan. And so we should expect to see that. That is going to happen. I don't know if the vote is April or if it's May. And that plan is going to be developed. And I think that plan is going to inform a lot of what is the most important thing to tackle earliest. And so, not unlike the T-SPLOST, where there was funding available for the Bike Ped Master Plan before the Bike Ped Master Plan was adopted, this is similar in that there's this plan that is going, you know, to be coming around here shortly, and there will be a lot of detail that is in that will inform where this goes. But we're obligating ourselves to SPLOST for 10 years. You know, we're not going to have this opportunity to do these kinds of investments until 2030. 2030 is a long time, you know, when we look at, you know, making these transitions.
Thank you all very much.